Yo, it's me, DCEU, baby. And now that I've reviewed every movie in the DCEU, it's time that I explore the DCEU, which is what the name of this review series is, but exploring it to find the one thing that's to talk about not only the comparison between it and Marvel, but to find the one thing that is consistent throughout all 6 movies in this franchise, not including Birds of Prey, or Harley Quinn the movie, whatever. 7. There's 7 here. 7 movies in this franchise. By not only comparing it, but trying to find that, explore the franchise to find the one consistent thing, and that is a dark tone. Now, just bear with me here, because people probably sitting there watching this saying, hey, they're lighthearted movies. Shazam, Aquaman, they're lighthearted movies. But, hear me out. I've always considered DC and Marvel different in that Marvel, while having some bit of dark things to it, especially in some character deaths and all that, is mostly lighthearted. And DC has been a little more dark as it comes to their content, like Batman and his brooding ways, the Green Arrow, even with the Flash and some of his dark times, especially in the series. Every hero in there has a dark time. Just like every film in this franchise also has somewhat of a dark time in them. We start with Man of Steel, and you note that there is a sort of dark tone to it, a very serious tone. It's the most serious take on Superman we've seen in a theatrical film. And it is dark, with Superman being forced to break Zod's neck to stop him from killing innocent people, and the fact that it causes him, even though there's not much, it causes him great pain to do so, because he's, made a vow that he would not kill, but he was forced to. Yes, he's a bad guy, and it's okay to kill the bad guys, but still, it causes grief, and that's a dark kind of tone. This continues into Batman v Superman, where even though Superman is a hero, the people of Earth aren't exactly sure how to take it, because his fight with Zod caused a lot of damage. Also, we have Batman, the ultimate dark tone of this movie, and how he's not killing people, but he's severely hurting people and leaving his insignia burned on them. And and whether or not he should actually go through with killing Superman, and whether or not it's the right thing to do, and if that will drive him into complete darkness. If that will make him a bad person or not, and if Superman is a bad person on the hand. Yes, there's the whole trial that makes no sense, because it just gets blown up, so there's no conclusion to the story of whether or not Superman really is in the eyes of the people, a bad guy. And, you get to Justice League, which, why is he's so far back? Maybe you get to Justice League, which is farther down, but by then, people were more accepting of Superman because they know now he is a hero, but it's just that dark, that they didn't know. You get the Suicide Squad, and besides the fact that you have to close the blinds because the cinematography is so dark, there is a bit of darkness to it. The Enchantress herself is a force of darkness. And Harley Quinn's conflictedness on whether or not she should help out, and even though, in the end, she's the one that gives the last blow, and it's just, and like I said, dark tones. I'm trying to do something to suit my pants, okay? So, yes, and the tone is darker than it would be, and there is comedy, but with the fact that the movie's so freaking dark, you gotta tone going throughout. Then we get to one moment, and it's a little bit lighter in tone, but there's still that sort of, seriousness to it, where, you take the war, for example. Diana's belief is that the war is being caused by Ares, and she sees what's going on with all these people out of their homes, nowhere to live, and people are constantly being shot at, and especially the scene with the gas, when the gas is dropped on people that she thought she saved, and she's the only one who can go through there because the gas doesn't affect her, and she sees all people who are now dead, and that seriously affects her. And then she gets to the end where she thinks that she kills Ares when she kills Danny Houston's character, whose name I can't remember, and it causes her to question everything she's been told, being raised, and whether or not it's actually Ares' fault for the war, or if it's actually the human's choice to go to war. But then that's sort of thrown out the window when they show that Ares is in fact real, which I think the other way around could have worked, especially since with Ares gone, how do you explain the other wars that come after it, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, how do you explain that, But the dark tone somewhat continues in Justice League, even though they kind of ruined it with jokes and stuff like that. But there is a dark tone to it, and a dark, theme to it, and that's Steppenwolf is this demonic alien presence who wants to destroy the world with these mother boxes, and his parademons, which are very dark, they go through, and he's starting by Chernobyl and Russia, and that's a dark place, and the team has to band together. And then, even though I don't like the direction they go with it, there is still that dark tone, and that still continues to Aquaman. And now you're saying, wait a minute now. Think about it. What place was Arthur in before Bruce came to him? He had nothing to do with anyone. He was isolated except for his father. He was shunning humans except for when he went to get his alcohol. He had nothing to do with anyone, because of what happened to his mother years earlier. Now, he didn't know that she was dead. He just knew that she was gone. But still. And you get, Orm's plan to unify all the races of the ocean people to launch a war on the surface. Which, I don't know how much they have enough suits, but you know what? And that's dark. That terror from the sea. And speaking of terror, the trench itself is a dark, dark place. This keeps that dark tone running through, and then we get to Shazam. And you might think I'm reaching here, but there is some kind of darkness to it, with the villain, Dr. Sirvana. Now, his motivation is that when he was a kid, and it's very dark when this happens, he was taken to be chosen, and he chose the 7 deadly sins. And he's been trying his whole life just to get back to that point so he can take the sins from their imprisonment, showing that he truly is an evil individual even without the powers. Dark. And yes, the boardroom scene where he kills everyone, and even everything inside the cave is dark. And yes, while the movie itself is lighthearted, there is darkness through it. And I don't know about Birds of Prey or Harley Quinn, whatever. If Harley Quinn wasn't in Birds of Prey, I can see them doing something dark with it. My problem with this is that the dark tone is interrupted with them trying to be too much like Marvel. This is where the comparisons come in. The biggest problem is that DC, after a while, started to try to be Marvel. And that's not what they are. the dark tone established, at least in the first 3 films, even though there was some jokes, and Suicide Squad was working. And then Wonder Woman came along, and it's not as dark as the others. So like, okay, let's lighten it up. And then when Zack Snyder had a family emergency, they decided this was our chance. They hired Joss Whedon, and they completely changed the movie to what they wanted. Because I'm a firm believer that if Zack Snyder didn't have a family emergency, Justice League would be different, and it would be fine, and continue the dark tone. But they saw this as their entrance point to make it more like Marvel. Marvel's success is based on the fact of a couple things. One, they have enough foresight to sign their actors to multi-year deals. Whereas the DC and Warner Brothers, they don't. And that's why they keep losing their actors. They have to keep going back to the well, like Ben Affleck and possibly Henry Cavill not being a part of the franchise anymore. Now we got Twilight, shiny Batman, and possibly a new Superman, which I like Henry Cavill Superman, so no. But that even leaves open. So with everything we saw in Batman v Superman and Justice League to connect us to future stories, probably not going to happen because they got to change actors. Marvel doesn't have that problem because even if they have distributed actors like, say, Terrence Howard, they bring in Don Cheadle, who I believe is a better roadie than he was. And they don't have problems with recasting actors sometimes, especially since they haven't been in a film for a while. Like, they've recast some, but it's not like it changes, the film. And instead of just recasting and reinventing the character, there are different versions of the character you can do. Like, instead of having Batman be a younger Bruce Wayne, make him Terry McGinnis. And hire a different older actor, or have him be Damian Wayne. And yes, it's kind of weird that you could do it, but you could still do that. Have a younger actor, maybe in his early 20s. Play the character of Damian Wayne and say that Alfred actually had him somewhere else to be safe. And you can start the movie off with Batman, maybe even a stunt double, dying, and Damian Wayne has to take over. That's the way they handle this. Like, take Avengers Endgame. They took this event, this snap, and then they went 5 years into the future, and now we have a different actress to play Cassie Lang, Ant-Man's daughter. That works. Marvel is able to adapt because they're smart and they know what they're doing. And they recast, but they're smart about doing it. You know what I mean? But DC doesn't do that. They hit one roadblock and they stop and they start a totally different road. Whereas Marvel, they hit a roadblock and they barrel right through it with something else. Take Iron Man 2. A lot of people will criticize that, but they kept going. Thor the Dark World, that was really criticized, but they kept going. Iron Man 3, that's my personal least favorite one. The Mandarin, they didn't do right by the Mandarin, but that didn't stop them keeping going. And now at 23 films in, they're successful. 23 films, 12 years, they're very successful at doing this. It's because they know what they're doing. And they plan ahead. So if they know that, they have a certain amount of films with those contracts, and they know when they have to recast. And especially with the way they handled the departures of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, they don't just say, oh, they're gone, let's just recast their roles. No. They make Tony Stark's death meaningful. They make the departure of Captain America mean something to his past. Even though that kind of messes up some of the stuff with his future relationship with Sharon. But you know what I mean. Or not Sharon, what's her name? Emily Van de Kamp's character, who knows? They adapt. And they try to integrate everything and do it right. Whereas DC just decides, they don't go within a structure of this is how they don't plan it out. They go from movie to movie to movie. And if something doesn't work, they stop and they changed things. Like I said, Justice League, right? They had a plan of how they wanted to go forward with their movies, making them more lighthearted, but they didn't know how to do that. But then they saw an opportunity. When Zack Snyder had a family emergency, they decided, we're just going to redo this. And it didn't work in their favor. Don't try to be something else. Be your own thing. And that's the whole problem with the DCEU, is it's trying to be Marvel so much that that's why it's failing. And now they have to go with somewhat solo films. And I don't count Joker in there because while it's somewhat based on a DC property, he's not the Joker. He's, in my mind, the guy who inspired the Joker because of his age. Joaquin Phoenix is in his mid-40s. By the time that Batman's old enough to fight him, being in his mid-20s, early 30s, he'd be like 65. Hey, Batman! No. More likely, he's the guy who inspired the Joker. And I don't like that the guy who killed Bruce Wayne's parents was wearing a clown mask. That's not how it went. They were trying to be symbolic. It's kind of like an Elseworld story. Now that I thought about it, it's kind of like an Elseworld story, which is Marvel, I know, but an Elseworld story is a comic book story that's not connected to anything else, right? Even though they kind of mess it up with the Arrowverse because it was still connected, but an Elseworld story is a comic book story from Marvel, or it's DC. I don't know what I'm thinking. DC, it's an Elseworld story. I'm drunk. I don't know. Yeah, it's a DC thing, an Elseworld story where this is why you're gonna have some problems when you have to see your pants. But it's a DC thing, an Elseworld story. It's a story, self-contained, not connected to anything else, and that's what Joker is. It could be the origin story for the person who could really become the Joker, or it's this universe's world of the Joker or version of the Joker. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Batman will be created. You know what I mean? Especially in this kind of world. It's separate. It's standalone. And to say that Birds of Prey does that, if you hired a different actress to play Harley Quinn, which, why would you? Margot Robbie is fine. She's fantastic. She's fantastic. But you're trying to say you're going to build more standalone films. And yes, Shazam could be considered in that because while mentioning Aquaman, Superman, and Batman, we don't physically see any of the previous actors portray that. So this could be its own Elseworld story, not connected to the rest. While Batman, Superman, Aquaman, they exist in that world, we don't see their faces, what they look like, who they are. Superman shows up at the end, but you only see his insignia because they couldn't get Henry Cavill to show up. Now, if Henry Cavill had shown up, had reprised his role, then you could say it's connected. But it could be its own Elseworld story for all we know. And, if they continue doing this, they do their own Elseworlds thing, and they're saying that with the Batman, that's what it could be. They're planning a trilogy, and it's its own self-contained story, and do that just fine. But if you're planning on doing another Justice League with what we have here, and even the Flash is trying to do its own thing with the Flashpoint, and there's conflicting things. Oh, Flashpoint's going to be the name of the Flash movie. Oh, the Flash 2 is going to be Flashpoint. What? To set up the introduction of the Twilight Batman. Well, there's a problem with that is that the Batman's going to come out before even the first Flash movie. So, shut up, we got this covered. And I get mad at people that say, oh, we got this covered. It's automatically bullshit. But a good, not half, but a third of the stuff they put out, sometimes it's true. You never know. Like I said, the biggest problem with the DCEU is that it's trying to be Marvel when it already started out being DC. It started out with this dark tone, and they decided it wasn't working. The studio, Warner Brothers, decided it wasn't working. They were wrong, but that's what they decided. I liked the dark tone of Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and even Suicide Squad, with some of the comedy brought in with reshoots. It was the same director, though. So he knew what he was doing. He knew what bits to take out and what to keep in. Whereas with Justice League, you had a completely different director come in, and the studio probably said, we don't care what you take out, just make it better. And it caused a lot of confusion, because it took all the Superman stuff out, which I think would have been the better part of the movie. I'm just saying. If they hadn't tried to drastically change Justice League, it probably would have been better. Yes, Wonder Woman had a lighter tone, but it wasn't totally lighthearted. And you get Aquaman, which still isn't all the way lighthearted. If anything, Shazam is the most lighthearted of all the films. And to be honest, if they had kept a straight, dark kind of tone, and yes, Shazam could have still been lighthearted, because think about this. Shazam isn't the main part of the Justice League. You got, what do you got? Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. They're part of the Justice League. So you can still have some kind of dark tones with them and fit with the Justice League motif. Suicide Squad, it's sort of a spin-off. It could do whatever it wants. It could be dark, it could be lighthearted, whatever. A darker tone for Suicide Squad, a darker tone is probably needed, which is why the new one, which is sort of a reboot, and once again, they're rebooting it instead of trying to, work on what was wrong, what was right. And trying to make that a darker tone. And then Shazam, of course, owns itself to a lighter tone because of the way the characters are. And that works. So, these two can be whatever they want because they're kind of like side movies, while these ones are connected. And that's what DC does different than Marvel. All of the Marvel movies are connected in one way or another. Even the ones that are set in like space, or even with Ant-Man, they're connected. So like we got the Eternals and Shang-Chi coming up, I don't know when because of what's going on, but they seem to be separate. And Shang-Chi's supposed to introduce the real Mandarin, which now that Iron Man is dead. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll see. Somehow Marvel's going to be able to connect them to the rest of the franchise because that's how they do it. With DC, you can do your own little Elseworld story. And yes, this is connected in that it deals with the death of Superman. So you can connect that. This talks about Superman, Aquaman, Batman. But like I said, you don't see them. So they're all connected. But their own stories as well. Because the main complaint was you're having them, these criminals go out and fight crimes, but where are the superheroes? Well, first of all, this is before Justice League. So the only heroes people would know about would be Batman and the strange woman with the rope to help Batman and Superman, right? The other ones are just hearsay. Although the Flash did arrest him, so they would know something of a speedster, I guess. But, that's why it could be on its own while still being connected to the greater universe. And that's what they're doing well. But if they just decide, we're going to have it separate, which the Batman is probably looking like that because it's a totally different Batman, we'll see how it does. But I'm just saying, my overall thoughts is that DC would have been better if they stuck with the mainly dark tone of their main movies, which are these, right? They had a dark tone, somewhat dark tone, in between tone, and this one is the one that kind of went all wonky with its tone, while somewhat dark, somewhat funny, all goofy, mushed together. That's what kind of messed it up. And after Justice League failed, they decided, we need to do something different. We got Shazam, which itself, even without Justice League failing, could have still been lighthearted. And we got Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, which looks like it's going to go back to the goofiness, which, to be honest, Harley Quinn is goofy, so it might work. I haven't seen it yet, but who knows. And what else is there? Wonder Woman 1984, it looks alright. It looks like it might maintain the same kind of tone as the first one, where she's still kind of dealing, Because I think we're building to the circumstances to why she decided she needed to come out of hiding and work with, But that leads to an explanation where no one knew who she was in 2016. But if she was around in 1984, then when they know who she was, I don't know. I haven't seen it being pushed away again because of everything that's going on, which I think is, don't push so much away, because if you go too far into the future and push everything away, and then this goes away, and then this gets over with, then you'll have no movies to release because you pushed them all so far back. I'm just saying, the DCEU, to me, is full of decent films. There are flaws, sure, Justice League most of all, but if they had maintained one decent tone throughout, not including Shazam or Suicide Squad, because they're not, in the same universe, they're not connected. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman and Justice League are connected because they all contain similar characters. The other two are sort of spin-off characters within the same DC universe, so they don't need to have the same tones. Although, I'm one of those who actually sticks up for the DCEU, as I think that there's not too big of missteps that they couldn't just keep continuing from that same point, instead of just rewriting everything and restarting, rebooting, because people left, or this wasn't working. Don't give up. Just because something wasn't working doesn't mean you say, oh, we got to start over. No. And I'll just dub Batman when it comes out, but I'm just saying, yeah. For me, the DCEU is flawed, but not terrible. What are your thoughts on the DCEU as a whole? Let me know in the comments below. This video went on longer than I thought it would, but you know what? I'm glad I got this out, because I'm a supporter of the DCEU and really think that it should continue instead of everything being rebooted. I'm just saying. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll be back with my ranking. I'll see you.